What's up, everyone? Thomas here with For Real, and it is time to cover Tribeca Festival once again. I am on the line also once again with a recurring guest, my friend and the writer, editor, podcast guy for Drinking the Movies in Seattle, Taylor Baker. What's up, Taylor?
Thanks for having me. I feel like we do this, I guess, every month now.
Pretty much. I think that's kind of the cadence that we've gotten used to. I feel like so the next time we do this, we should like bring a friend.
yes. Let's start a social network through this.
Yes, I think that would be fun. So but anyway, Tribeca's starting, and we've had a few weeks to look through the films that will be playing at the festival and kind of assess what is screening and what we'll have access to on the At Home platform, because we will be covering the festival remotely from here in the Pacific Northwest. And even though there's a lot of films I wish I could be in New York to actually see, I think that the At Home platform has a decent selection of things, and I'm excited to talk about what I am looking forward to covering here remotely.
As am I. Yeah, it's we're getting back to the virtual experience. It's been a month or two since you and I went through going virtual. We had SIF, which was in person, and very nice to go see these big movies on these big screens. But yeah, we're back to watching things from home and drinking our adult beverages while we do it.
Yes. I am on whiskey tonight, as I usually am.
And I am on a very lazy pre-mixed vodka mule.
You know what? Whatever works, right? I guess that's what's important.
Exactly. I wanted some ginger beer, and I figured why not buy some with some liquor in it.
Nice. You know what, though? So I would like to point this out, because over the past few videos, I've actually gotten a couple comments about my background. And so I'm giving a little more context here. This is my studio. It wasn't quite as put together as it is now. And one of these days I'll give you the tour, but I'm not done setting it up. But ultimately, like, this is the space that I work in. So now you don't just have the wood panels behind me. I do have a couch over here that I like to lounge in when I'm like watching something on my computer. I have my whiskey up on the shelf. And so yeah, this
expensive shelf.
It's a wonderful shelf. So this is the space. If anyone has been watching my videos and wondering, like, what am I working in a sauna? Kind of. Sometimes I have my heater on, and I just like when it's really hot. As you might be able to guess, I love when summer happens and it's like really warm temperatures. That is my vibe. But anyway, this is the space. And so now you have a little more context about where I'm recording from.
The third bedroom.
The third bedroom. Yes. I mean, it was so easy for me I almost did it the other night. I was working on something and waiting for the video to render, and I laid on the couch and was doing my Duolingo and just passed out for like 5 minutes.
Oh, you do your Duolingo at the end of the day. I'm more of a beginning of the day type of guy.
You know, it really kind of depends, because there's sometimes I'll do it like on my lunch break if I have the time. On the weekend I might do it in the morning. But yeah, it's so easy because it's just a couple minutes. Like, if that's all I have to give to it, like just a couple minutes. And so like when I'm rendering video, or if I'm waiting for something to download or whatever, it's so easy to just flip it on, and it likes to notify me about like when I'm going to lose my streak. And I'm like, I can't lose my streak.
I'm not a loser. Mama didn't raise no bitch.
Nope. That's funny. So yeah,
that definitely happens to me. I actually just got a notification that from Duolingo as we started that said somebody took my spot.
Oh no,
in third place. And I'm like, oh son.
See, I take that so personally, but then there's also times when I'm like, they can have it for a couple of days. I will be back.
As long as I'm in the top 10 at the end of the week.
Yes, that's what's important, right? If you're wondering, I'm doing Spanish and French. I have a little Spanish background, but not nearly enough to be fluent. So picking back up on Spanish, and then I am doing French and learning French from scratch on Duolingo. So that's been a very interesting experience for me.
It is interesting. There's a lot of las and les.
Las, les, un, garçon. I'm still trying to get the accents. There's, I'm used to rolling my tongue in Spanish, but I think there's like some things that happen in French that I'm still like trying to work into the
Yes,
language.
I can read it much better than I can speak it, we'll say. I
Mhm.
took some in college, and then I did German in high school. I'm brushing up on both.
Yeah, I love when it tells me to speak the phrase and I'll speak it and I feel like I do really well. I'm like, yeah, I said that.
And you're really just doing an impression.
Yes, that's it. I would hate to actually take the little French that I know to someone who actually speaks French. It would be very comical. Anyway, we're here to talk about Tribeca. We're gonna start with talking about a few movies that we've seen at other festivals that we would like to bring to your attention playing at Tribeca. So Taylor, I'm gonna let you start on this one. What are a couple movies that you have seen before that you think are worth mentioning here at Tribeca?
So I'm going to pivot. I think that you're more of the one that's leaning on films he's already seen at other festivals,
Oh yes.
whereas I'm going to be talking about films I've already seen from this festival. Luckily, thanks to some different publicity teams. So the first of which I think did play at Berlinale earlier this year. I didn't attend that festival, and that's director Tim Sutton's Taurus. He made Funny Face in 2020. I think he had a film between now and then, but this is a film that centers on Machine Gun Kelly playing kind of a Kurt Cobain-esque modern era character. I would say that the allusions to Kurt Cobain begin and end at Blonde, involved in the music industry, and Suicidal. I think that there's very little connecting them otherwise as far as characterization, but it's got a great supporting performance from an actress named Maddie Hassan, who was also a supporting actress in Malignant a couple years back, or maybe it was just last year, James Wan's film. It got interesting tonality, but when it leans into its character moments with Maddie, it actually is a very sticky film, and I'd recommend people take a look at it while they're attending the festival. How about you? What's your first film you've already seen, perhaps at another festival?
You're right.
Doesn't
Yeah.
end in smooth.
No, you can't veto that one. Of course, I'm going to talk about Cha Cha Real Smooth. And I'm only going to talk about it briefly because we brought this movie up in multiple videos in the past. I can't stop talking about it. I am like ready to start a brand new Apple TV Plus account because I don't really mess with Apple. I'm an Android person. My husband is more Apple, but you know what? I'm about to bum his account so that I can go watch this. But it's also playing at the festival. So Cha Cha Real Smooth, of course, directed by Cooper Raiff, starring Cooper Raiff and Dakota Johnson. It's just such a wonderful film. And so Taylor, both you and I got to see it virtually at Sundance, and then had the distinct pleasure of seeing it in person in Seattle. So worth the additional viewing in a theater, which is something that not a lot of people will have the opportunity to do. So I'm very thankful for that.
But people in New York can.
But people in New York can. If you are attending, seriously, guys, if you are attending Tribeca in person, make time. I know that it's coming out on Apple TV Plus pretty soon, but make time to see it in a theater. I think that it's already a wonderful film just watching it, but when you're in an audience, especially if it's a packed theater or a really busy screening, there's just so many ways to react to this film, and when you have that communal experience with everyone, it's wonderful. Cha Cha Real Smooth. Make time for it.
I a brief aside, I suspect that we will see a FYC theatrical run like in major cities in the fall, winter, early winter, maybe. I think that Apple will try to get this in front of eyes in theaters, perhaps after the success of Coda. They might experiment with theatrical release a little bit.
And I really hope they do. Look, I mean, I can't remember what their strategy was for Coda because we watched that at Sundance, and I wasn't.
It was just digital. It was just, It came out in August digitally, and then they sent out the FYC screeners in December, I think.
Look, Apple, do what you have to get this movie, because I will be ecstatic if Cha Cha Real Smooth goes to win Best Picture. Okay, so let's just put that out into the universe. Cha Cha.
Put that into the world.
All right. What's
so
your next one? Yeah.
My next one is Mally Elfman's directorial debut, Next Exit. This is a film that has interesting tonality, and that everyone in the world could potentially see dead relatives or dead people. And that changes the philosophical underpinnings of society, with people that are maybe suicidal or have questionable mental health now having an outlet to go to a different version of reality. And it's a little intimate road character portrait of two people's relationships as they go through that. Karen Gillan plays a supporting character. But if you were to watch the film just for her, I think you'd be disappointed because she is so distant from the film proper. But it's an interesting approach for a film, and if you have the time to seek it out, it's worth engaging with.
Very cool. I have to put that one on my radar. I have not looked into that one yet, but yeah, glad that you have that on your recommendations list.
And what is your next title that doesn't end in competition?
Don't do this to me. Yes, the next movie I'm going to talk about is Official Competition. It's another one that I've had the distinct pleasure of watching twice. I can't talk too much about my second viewing of it, but both viewings were in person, and it's another film that is just so delightful to experience in theaters because of how outrageously comedic this movie is, at least from my perspective. I got some feedback from Taylor about my laughing audibility in the theater.
the first screening in particular.
You know what? Guilty. All right, I will own that. The movie is hilarious, and there are particular scenes where I could not control how much I laughed at that movie.
Perhaps the kissing scene.
You know what? I'm just gonna let people experience when it happens. You will know, right? It's so funny and so entertaining. Absolutely worth a second viewing, which I think really, for me, expresses how good of a film. Because sometimes you can watch a film the first time and just be so entranced by the experience that you just jump to like, oh, it was a great film. But watching it the second time really upheld how much fun I had the first time and the second time with the film. And like I said, it's another one that I would strongly recommend watching with an audience. There's just so much to react to. Every scene is just a really comedic gag there's scenes that you will talk about after the movie. Certain things just like make these scenes so memorable, and it's totally worthwhile. So Official Competition. It's two directors, Mariano Cohen and Gaston Duprat, and of course stars Penelope Cruz, Antonio Banderas, and Oscar Martinez. So great cast and awesome direction for a comedy film. I mean, this is probably one of the best comedies I've seen in recent memory, really. I mean, besides Cha Cha Real Smooth, but I'll put that in the drama
Yeah,
category.
That's more of a drama to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one of my favorite films of last year. Technically, it's releasing this year. It'll probably be in my top 20 of this year. It obviously loses a little bit watching it the second time because you don't know certain things the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But just watching the like ending Dogville-esque scenes where there's just lines on the ground and these performers are acting as if everything's real around them. It really is simultaneously brutal satire of acting while being high fine art. It's quite the film, and if you have the chance to see it, definitely should.
Absolutely. And I think maybe that's what I got out of the second watch is this is a movie that you're going to want to recommend to people, even if it's just to watch the movie.
Yeah. And this is so Penelope Cruz didn't get her award last year, whatever movie it was that she was in.
Was it Parallel Mothers?
Yes, yeah. Right. But this is the movie she should get it for, right?
Yes.
Like this is the movie that she deserves it for the Brilliant. Kissing scene alone.
Yes, just
she deserves the award.
Give that girl an Oscar. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. All right, what's next on your list?
Next on my list is a film that I think is currently my favorite film out of the selections that I've seen so far for Tribeca. It's Lee Sunday Evans' directorial debut, The Courtroom. I believe that the screenplay was either adapted or partially co-written and adapted by Arian Moayed, who played a significant supporting character in the HBO series Succession. And this is just a kind of point by point retelling of a Filipino woman's experience of going through the DMV attempting to get a driver's license and accidentally breaching the law to the point that she's going to be extradited out of the United States back to her home country, breaking up her family, separating her from her husband and daughter and her stepdaughter, who she serves as the primary mother of. And it's a very restrained tonal representation of the courtroom drama. But as I was telling you before we started recording, this is the type of courtroom film I'd much rather watch than the trial of the Chicago 7. So take that for whatever you will, but this is so far my favorite film that I've screened as part of Tribeca.
Yeah, you know what? This is definitely an interesting one. And I've said on multiple occasions that I am very attracted to films with limited settings and limited casts, and this is absolutely one of those kind of films where they make a lot out of a little. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the script is simply the transcript of the trial that happened, and so it's actors reenacting the transcript. And what's so amazing is that it doesn't feel as like robotic as you might think a non-curated script should be or might be, right? Like I think
and it's because they got great thespians. Like those performers are fantastic. There's an incredible amount of humanity in what we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I guess I had the chance to see this as well, and I'm happy that we're bringing it up because it's certainly one to check out at the festival. So.
And what's your next title that you've already seen, sir?
You know, I am going to plug Land of Gold at this point. I've
also seen it.
Yeah, this is a film that I appreciate from a new director's perspective, right? Like, so the director is Nardeep Kurmi. Thank you. Nardeep Kurmi, who is the lead actor, the writer, and the director. And it's always impressive to me when a filmmaker wears multiple hats in a production, right? And so I absolutely respect this project for that aspect. And yeah, it's kind of an interesting story just to see how this relationship between this guy who is a trucker develops with this girl who is a stowaway, and he has to kind of the care of her has been imposed onto him. So it's an interesting film, and I'm happy that Tribeca is screening it.
Quick comment. I think Caroline Valencia, the actress who plays the young girl, is actually very convincing, and it's kind of odd how good of an actress she is to deliver these really kind of preposterous situations dramatically with a great amount of pathos. So
yeah, she's so interesting. She's so charismatic. Absolutely. Exactly. Very charismatic. Like that was very apparent from her performance, and
very self-embodied. Like she has a identity that kind of moves around the screen around her. There's an aura to her presence, which is very interesting for such a young actress.
Yeah, for sure. So that's mine. Land of Gold. You have one more?
Yes, my last one is a direct cinema documentary called Naked Gardens. It's a documentary about a naturalist community, which means nudist, for those of us that don't know, like me before I watched the documentary. They're based in Florida, and it's kind of exactly what you would imagine a lot of what we'll call autumnal folks and their latter life years walking around with skin that is definitely thickened and more coarse from the sun. And it's just an experience that I would never have otherwise had, I can honestly say. And it's very rare that you find those documentaries that give you this portrayal of life in a community that you would never otherwise find yourself in. Normally, you could see yourself taking a vacation and ending up in the hotel that the Florida Project takes place in. But you're not going to go to Florida and end up in the nudist commune that this film takes place in. And so I think it's fantastic for multiple reasons, especially how it portrays like weird politics of like building things in this like trailer park for the community, like a pond. But it's a very interesting film to watch. I enjoyed watching it, and I think that a lot of other people will as well.
Yeah,
I'd give it a shot.
You're convincing me, right? Like I don't really have much interest in watching a nudist film, but I do have interest in experiencing different cultures. And so this seems like, I mean, it's not like I'm actually there. And I think, that's the magic of documentaries, is that you get to like be transported temporarily into someone else's world. So it sounds like this is doing that. I have not seen it yet. And it's been on my radar. Like I've scrolled past it a few times, and it has a very interesting cover image.
Yes,
but but yeah, well, I'm glad that you've seen it. It that does help reassure me that maybe it might be worth checking out.
Yeah, it's so just for comparison's sake, something like Crows Are White, right? That's a very cinema verite documentary where it's self-reflexive and it's about him. This, the Documentarians Disappear, it's co-directed, I think, by a couple. They've made tons of documentary features together, but this is more direct cinema. So they're just documenting and presenting without necessarily bringing themselves into the film. But over the course of the film, the things that they observe and the way that they edit it, you definitely get a sense for their characterization.
I'm happy. Like I was literally going to ask, like, how would you compare this to Crows Are White? Because I know you love Crows Are White.
I love it. It's different, but it's different in the way that I like. Crows Are White is so special because it's accidentally cinema verite in many ways, and this is conceived wholly as direct cinema of them capturing something and sending it back to you. And so you get the feeling that you're there through the way that they characterize being there with the cameras. They're different, but I think that they're both among some of the most worthwhile documentaries I've seen at this point, which is almost halfway through the year.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool.
How about you? What is your last title, sir?
The last title that I'm going to talk about is Corner Office. And
you're gonna ham it up.
I am gonna. I see what you did there. Corner Office is directed by oh man, Joaquin. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Joaquin Back. But it stars John Hamm, Danny Pudi, Christopher Heyerdahl, and Sarah Gadon is also in it as well for a little bit. And it's a very interesting premise. I really like psychological thrillers, and I don't know, it doesn't go too much into the thriller aspect, but there's certainly like a psychological component to it. You spend the premise of this film is that John Hamm's character is in this like super mundane like administrative office, and he finds this room that apparently nobody else sees or thinks is there. And so the whole movie, he is absolute about this room being there, and everyone else is absolute about the room not being there. And so as an audience member, you get to spend the whole movie trying to figure out, like, is he crazy, or is everyone trying to make him feel crazy, right? And it's a fascinating angle. So of course, John Hamm, there's a lot of great performances from John Hamm. If you I just recently watched Top Gun Maverick, that might be an interesting selling point for this film, is that he's in that, and yeah. So but ultimately it's it's a film that spends a lot of time in the head of this guy because he's narrating the whole time, and spends this time in his head. Kind of, you get a total sense of what kind of character he is and how he operates. Something that I mentioned in my interview with Oliver is that he feels very Vulcan sometimes, super logical and rational about how he analyzes things. And so yeah, there's kind of a character study in there, but also just this mystery of, is this room there? And I am sad to say that it's only screening online in New York. So if you're in New York, this is something that you can check out at home. But yeah, I think that it's certainly worth seeking if you have the opportunity.
Awesome.
So with those in mind, now that we've talked about some things that we have seen, let's talk about some films that we are looking forward to. We each have 5 films that we're really looking forward to seeing and talking about. And so, your turn. What movie do you want to start with on what you're excited to see at Tribeca?
Are we coming out with the big guns, or are we saving the big guns for last?
Let's save the big guns for last. Let's
save the big guns for last.
Let's
All
work
right,
our way up.
let's do a steady build.
Yeah.
So the 5th most interested film that I will be talking about today is Alex Heller's The Year Between. This is a directorial debut that she serves as writer, director, and star in. It's also buoyed by J. Smith Cameron, who is a fantastic actress and also is in Succession, and Steve Buscemi. And it seems to be, based on the synopsis and what I've read about the film, essentially about a girl going through a hard point in her life while suffering from a psychological break of sorts. And that's a very interesting angle to take for a wholly controlled character piece, which is what this is. And she's got 2 great character actors surrounding her, and Buscemi and J. Smith Cameron. So this is a film that popped on my radar, and I will absolutely make sure that I see before the festival ends.
Very cool. Yes, I'm gonna have to bookmark that and see if I can see it. I think most of the films that you have on your radar aren't quite on my radar, and so that's one of the reasons I love doing this, is because I get to, I think when we would look through the lineups, we get an impression, right? We read descriptions, we see the cover image, and so there's certain things that stand out to me, and then there's certain things that stand out to you. And I think it's not until we have these conversations that I can start bridging this gap between like what I think I'm interested in and what I actually might be interested in. So I guess
we certainly glom onto different things, and different names mean different things to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. Yeah, I think most years I'm going to be like, yes, I'm going to bookmark that. So if that's what I'm saying after every time that you say yours, I'm just going to put that explanation out there.
What is your 5th most anticipated title?
Yeah, and I don't know if I have a ranking for these, but I do have one that I am most excited to see. So I'm going to work my way up to that.
I do as well.
Yeah. But the first one that I want to talk about is this film called Blessed Boys. It's directed by Silvia Brunelli. And this Tribeca screening is the North American premiere for the film. And the synopsis just reads, in a sunny district of Nepal's Italy, where everyone knows each other, 2 inseparable friends live in the sheltered bubble of neighborhood life until their fraternal friendship is put to the test. I saw this online, and I don't think that I talk enough about LGBTQ films at film festivals, and so I think that this is a really interesting one to bring up. Firstly, because it's a directorial debut from Silvia, a feature directorial debut, and it won Best Italian Feature at the Rome International Film Festival, and so there's certainly some credibility to the quality of this film with that. And yeah, honestly, like I'm really curious to see how this film handles male relationships on screen in this directorial debut. And with it being Pride Month, there's a whole the whole selection of LGBTQ films playing at Tribeca, which is great, especially for this month. But this is the one that stood out to me, and I'm very, like I said, I'm very interested in seeing how the male relationships are handled in this film, where, if I'm not mistaken, one of the characters, they both are really good friends, but one starts developing feelings for the other. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out. And
that title is
Blessed Boys.
Blessed Boys.
Yep.
Awesome. And that's streaming on demand at home?
It is, yes. So this one will be streaming on the At Home platform for the United States.
Awesome. We are decidedly at the point where there's 3 movies that are kind of equally in the middle for me. So nobody read too much into this, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the documentary MCENROE, which is being touted as kind of the first time that we're going to see John McEnroe, in his own words, talking to a camera about his experiences being him and going through his athletic feats. If you're unfamiliar, John McEnroe is perhaps one of the most famous or infamous tennis players of all time. He was recently portrayed in a film that I'm now forgetting the full title of, but Shia LaBeouf played John's character in it. He was a very hot-headed, as Shia is, tennis player who would frequently throw his racket, tennis balls, scream absurdities and slurs at referees, yell at the crowd. Very fascinating character. And this is ostensibly just going to be mostly him talking into a camera, I assume interlaced with historical footage. There's been, I think, 4 different films in the last 6 years about John McEnroe, and this is the first one that's actually him talking as if he knows he's the subject. And so I think it's just a fascinating way to kind of put a cap on this weird little sub era of a fascination in subculture with John McEnroe. And that is McEnroe.
McEnroe. Very cool. I'm gonna bookmark that.
and your 4th most anticipated film?
I'm gonna stick with this friendship theme going on, although this is with a straight friendship, and I'm gonna go with God's Time, directed by Danielle Entebbe, and the synopsis reads: a heart-racing NYC set dark comedy that sees 2 best friends in recovery for addiction trying to prevent the potential murder of their mutual crush's ex-boyfriend. There's a lot going on in that sentence with this premise, which makes it so interesting. It sounds like it's going to be upbeat, dark comedy. I like the dark comedies. On the subject of like friendship movies, I think about things like On the Count of Three. And
you think about suicide?
Yes,
on the subject of friendship, I think about killing yourself.
I mean, look, that movie has a whole bunch of mixed feelings happening with that. But I think that, this has to do with addiction. And so it's not quite suicide, but there's definitely, the trouble in these characters' lives. And so it just seems like a very interesting New York based kind of film. And it's another directorial feature debut. And I think that now that we are moving towards, because I think this happens this movie takes place in the COVID era. And so I think now that we're moving away from COVID restrictions, I'm wondering how much more refined we can make COVID era storytelling. So I'm really interested in seeing how that's tackled here. And as I've mentioned in previous films, breezy runtimes mean a lot to me. This one sits at 83 minutes. So.
And now I know why it's on your radar at all.
Look, you gotta make the most of your time, and 83 minutes, that works for my schedule.
I get it. My 3rd most anticipated film, and I think this is probably correct where I have it placed here, is Jerry and Marge Go Large, directed by David Frankel, who you may know as the director of The Devil Wears Prada starring Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening. It's a based on a true story about a couple that finds a loophole, and I want to say Connecticut, but I might be wrong. A single states lottery, and they find like a mathematical loophole, abuse it, seemingly win the lottery based on the synopsis, and then put all that money back into their rundown town. It seems like a pretty fun, good faith, good-hearted, drama comedy. A nice little palate cleanser, perhaps, in the middle of the festival. So, and I always like watching Annette Bening, and it's interesting to see Cranston in film because he's such a prolific television actor. Breaking Bad and Malcolm in the Middle, he kind of had two of the most prominent television roles in two separate decades, and then has had an interesting film career otherwise. So he's interesting to watch for a few different reasons.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. For some reason, you may have told me about this title.
I did.
But that is but that is a stacked cast. And I think just for the cast, I would love to check out this one. What's it called again?
Jerry and Marge Go Large.
Okay, great. That's all I need to know.
Right. It's like, it sounds exactly like the radish you eat in between tacos. Like,
yes.
It's just a perfect palate cleanser. You're going to feel nice afterward. It's not going to be anything heavy. And you're ready to get back into those tacos that are the other Tribeca Film Festival movies.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. I mean, I really like watching Annette Bening in films. I have not had a bad experience with that yet. So yeah.
She is fantastic. What is
Absolutely.
your third most anticipated films?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a documentary on this list. I'm going to go with the Rebellious Mrs. Rosa Parks, directed by Joanna Hamilton and Yoruba Richin. This is the world premiere of this documentary, and really it's a documentary that chronicles the role of Rosa Parks in, of course, the Montgomery bus boycott that we are all kind of familiar with, but also just her work in politics in general and all of the activism that she was involved in all the way up to her death, I guess, in 2005. And I think that I'm very interested in this film as an educational experience because, I know, obviously we all know Rosa Parks for not giving up her seat on the bus and of course, leading that bus boycott kind of effort, which was important for the civil rights movement. But I don't know if we talk about her outside of that context. And I think it's important to know about all of the work that she did in civil rights activism, and I think that this movie is going to be a very comprehensive look at that, and I'm just ready to learn about that and be able to absorb that, so that when I think Rosa Parks, it's not just the bus boycott, it's really a lifetime legacy of activism and trying to continue pursuing civil justice.
Cool. You said Rosa Parks documentary, and I was like, there's got to be like 98 of those, and I just did a quick Google, and like there was like one that was like a really low grade YouTube one, it looked like.
Yeah, what, that's actually
so
a good point, because you would think that there would be lots of documentaries on this, and I guess
the amount of TV shows where characters say Rosa Parks, like, you would think.
Like she's so prolific in that bus boycott aspect, but I guess we just kind of, I don't know, if take it for
she's
granted.
Kind of like Paul Revere, where it's like you say the name but you don't know anything else. You're like, right, oh yeah, right. the name equals the event that you caused. You caused like a cultural event, and that's all I need you for. So there's no like subtext there, so that right. is interesting. I'll put that on my list. But one thing that did turn up, I haven't vetted this further because we're obviously recording, right. but it does look like if you can't see it at Tribeca, it will at some point come out on Peacock.
Very cool. Nice.
Yeah. So what are we down to? My second most anticipated title of Tribeca.
We cruise through this list.
We're speeding. This title is I guess you would call it a documentary. It's more of like a nonfiction film, I would say, from what I've read about it. And the title is Lynch Oz. And this is an examination of the influence of Victor Fleming's The Wizard of Oz, one of the first most prominent Technicolor films, on the filmography of David Lynch. I, despite all of my efforts, still have enormous amounts of David Lynch blind spots, and I figured what better way to address some of those than to find out what this mysterious man is actually influenced by, from someone else's perspective, and see if I agree or disagree as I continue to work through his filmography.
Nice. Very cool. So there's like a personal growth thing involved with this.
Exactly.
I love it.
We try to incorporate that.
I love it. I respect the hell out of that.
Thank you.
Very cool. I'm going to go to a film. So this was on my radar, but I haven't looked into it a whole lot. In fact, when I mentioned it, Taylor actually knows a lot more about this film than I do. But it sounds interesting. So the next film that I want to talk about is this film called Rounding, from director Alex Thompson. It's at Tribeca. It's the world premiere of this film, and the brief synopsis just says, when a motivated resident doctor transfers to a rural hospital for a fresh start, his demons follow him as he becomes consumed with the case of a young asthma patient. So I am naturally drawn to thriller mystery kind of films, and this one just kind of seems to have that really mysterious aspect to it, and so I'm really interested in how that plays out. Just to talk a little bit on the credits, Alex Thompson, this is his sophomore film. Taylor enlightened me on the fact that he was the director of a film called St. Francis that apparently got positive buzz when that came out as his directorial debut, which is great. Taylor also mentioned that Sydney Flanagan is featured in the film, and she's from Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which I did enjoy, and I liked her performance in that. And I think the lead actor, Namir Smallwood, this is his debut feature performance, and so there's a lot of a very interesting mix of talent here that I'm interested in seeing how that works together to make this movie work. And ultimately, it seems like a good mystery, and so I like a good mystery. Let's do it.
Yeah, this is probably like somewhere around like 8 or 9. Like, if I can, I'm definitely gonna watch this film because so I think you said it's written and directed by Alex, but I think it's written, directed, produced, and edited by Alex.
Oh yeah. Which is something else I think you told me.
Yeah, this is also his first film, because he's only made one other that centers on a male character. And so there's the interesting subtext of like, how does he do telling a character the story of a male character versus a female character? It's always interesting to watch the interplay. Someone like Denis Villeneuve is also very interesting to watch how he tells stories from a male or female perspective, and normally he's at his best when he's telling kind of that in between, like in Sicario, where Emily Blunt's almost the main character, but there's two masculine characters that are playing more of like a plot that pulls everything along, or Blade Runner, where the female characters make up the entire marrow of the male character being pulled along. So there's always those interesting anecdotal things that I'm looking for in films like this, especially early on in these filmmakers' careers.
See, and this is why I said Taylor knows more about this than I do. I just like mysteries. That's why I want to watch it. Taylor has all the background.
And I didn't even know that it was playing. So right. Good thing that you did that.
You are welcome. There you go. All right, we're there. Here we go. The most anticipated film that you have on your list.
You want to take a guess at what the last word of the title is?
Oh, you probably told me.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this one like 6 times today. And there's a great example of how forgetful Thomas Stoneham Judge is.
Don't you know I'm like 95 years old? Okay.
My most anticipated Tribeca title is Robert Machoyan's follow-up to The Killing of Two Lovers, The Integrity of Joseph Chambers. This film also stars Clayne Crawford. Jordana Brewster seems to play the major supporting role. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's also included in the cast, but I'm most intrigued because this is the follow-up to one of my favorite films of last year, The Killing of Two Lovers. It had a very interesting aspect ratio. The film grain was very intimate feeling. The town was very small. The setting and place ended up having its own tone and character. It's an experience with a film where you end up feeling like you spent time where the film took place, and it kind of leaves an imprint in you. And anytime that happens, I'm very intrigued and want to go experience more. And Clayton Crawford is one of my absolute favorite performers working today. He's kind of a crazy guy, and he puts an incredible amount of energy and passion and himself into his work. And those are always my favorite artists. And no matter what he did, if it was good or bad, he's the type of actor where I would watch a movie just to see the choices that he made in it. So that's why this is my most anticipated film of Tribeca.
I do wish I had more time to allocate to this, because I did get the publicist request for interviewing the cast here, and I even messaged you, like, I really want to book an interview, but I reached my bandwidth, and so unfortunately I wasn't. I figured it would be not
implausible
to try to add more to my list. So, but just I am very interested in this film. I'm looking forward to seeing it for many of the reasons that you've said. I mean, the cast stands out to me, very recognizable names. And yeah, I just want to check it out. I think it's going to be interesting.
I agree with that statement.
Yeah, of course you do. Number one.
What is your most anticipated film of the festival?
Here we are, guys. Look,
Cha-Cha Real Smooth.
Yes, that is true. If I was in New York, that would definitely be the number one. But no, I'm gonna go with the film and I have to add the caveat, unfortunately, like, I'm excited for this and I'm hoping that I get a chance to see it, because it is geo-locked to New York on the general platform. But the film that I am most interested in seeing is called Don't Make Me Go. And there's a lot of reasons that I'm very interested in this. The director,
is it because you hate the movie Searching?
Oh my God, Searching is such a good film. If I had a time machine, I would go back to the year that Searching debuted at Sundance, and my life would be complete, right? Anyway,
for everybody watching, there's a long-standing argument between Thomas and I about whether or not Searching sucks. So
good.
I definitely am in the positive camp on it sucking.
Yeah, and I'm not. That was, I think, my number 2 film of that year. But we're talking about, like, we mentioned Searching because John Cho stars in Don't Make Me Go. It's directed by Hannah Marks, and this is the world premiere of the film. And the synopsis reads, it's a little long. When a single father, Max, who's played by John Cho, discovers he has a terminal illness, he decides to try to cram all the years of love and support he will miss with his teenage daughter, Wally, who's played by Mia Isaac, into the time he has left with her. With the promise of a long-awaited driving lesson, he convinces Wally to accompany him on a road trip to from California to New Orleans for his 20th college reunion, where he secretly hopes to reunite her with her mother, who left them long ago. So there's definitely, this seems like a movie that has a lot of character development, and if you know me, you know that character development's a huge thing. But so on top of this being a very interesting premise, on top of John Cho starring in it, I think that the credits really grab my attention here, because the writer of the film is Vera Herbert, who is a writer producer for the show This Is Us. And if you've watched This Is Us, it like plays melodies with heartstrings, right? Like that show is just proficient. I haven't watched it all, but what I've seen, it is proficient at that.
Did you only watch season 1?
I did only watch season 1. Yeah. Does it not get better?
I only watched through part of season 2, but there's definitely a marked difference between season 1, which, despite the hyperbole that you included in your sentence, I generally agree with.
But you know
since
what?
Then it really, from what I understand, it's very conventional.
You know what's interesting though is that even the trailers for the newest season pull on heartstrings. Like I the last season, I think, because I think that show's come to an end.
Yeah,
or
probably
coming to
now.
an end.
I definitely just saw the trailer for like the final whatevers in
Yeah,
the
the
last month,
final.
but
Yes, exactly right.
I don't know
So
if there's 6 parts to the final season. Like, I don't know how that works.
I think they knew how to pitch that show to its audience, right? And that
You mean to the
emotional.
incredible cast that was like, how long is this going to be? Like, what's the shooting schedule? And they're like, okay, Sterling, we're going to shoot all your scenes in like
Yeah.
6 weeks. And he's like, okay.
Which is possible, but look, season 1 I thought was really great.
I
And
agree.
again, I haven't watched the rest of it, but just from what I've seen in season 1, I think that show demonstrates at least a capacity to understand how to develop relationships in a way that is super emotionally driven, and I'm expecting for Vera to bring that into her writing with this particular film. So yeah, and also another interesting thing is that the Hannah, the director, also directed a film a few years ago called After Everything, which is another film that has to do with terminal illness. So I haven't seen it yet, but it seems like this is a topic that's very dear to her, I guess, like bringing this particular kind of theme into her movies. And so I'm interested in seeing. I want to go back and watch After Everything, and then seeing what she does with this premise of terminal illness in Don't Make Me Go.
So just a small side. I think that she co-directed After Everything.
Mhm.
And just last year did a different film,
Yeah,
Mark, Mary, and some other people. And that's
right.
about
It's
also a medical situation, we'll say.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Huh?
So there does seem to be some repetition. And I think most interesting to me is for a relative newcomer, this is her 4th film in 4 years. Like her directorial debut, her solo directorial debut was last year.
Mhm.
Her first co-direction credit was 2018. It's a very interesting ramp up. I'd be curious to see what type of proficiency she shows with the camera. So
Oh yeah.
I'll be seeking this one out as well, just to catch up on a filmmaker that I haven't spent time with yet.
Yep. And again, unfortunately, this is one that I've seen geolocked to New York. So if you're in New York, take advantage of this
Enjoy.
privilege. Enjoy it, right? So there we go. Those are the movies that we are most excited to see at Tribeca. And honestly, we do these videos, these curtain raises all the time, just kind of based on what we're projecting and what we kind of know amongst ourselves. It's always interesting when we actually get into the festival and we hop on Twitter and see what everyone else is saying. And who knows what movie might pop up on our radar and suddenly be like this incredible film that we just were
What
not
midnight
expecting.
movie did everybody log on
Yeah.
Letterboxd at a 4 or higher? Holy shit, that wasn't on my radar.
Right, exactly. It's crazy how that happens sometimes.
There could
So
be a dash cam at this festival. You just don't know.
we had a dash cam at another festival. We can't have more dash cams because my heart will explode from how much excitement I have for those kind of films. That's funny. But yeah, you just never know what'll come out of a festival. And Tribeca is a big one. It attracts a lot of talent. And yeah, I'm always interested in seeing what ends up popping up on my radar during the festival. And we will of course do this again towards the end of the festival to address those surprise films that pop up that we weren't expecting and
Yeah,
somehow impress us.
I'm
So
looking forward to all the ones that I love and none of the ones that I don't.
isn't that how our job goes? That's just the situation there. um did you have any other films that you wanted to mention before we log off?
I sure I do, but I don't have them written down, and it is late in
It
our
is late.
day. It
Yes.
is autumnal in our day, so I will
Yes,
pass on thinking with my brain any further.
that's fair. Just really quickly, I do want to say again that I do have an interview with Oliver Ridge for his work on Corner Office and for his work on Joyland. We talk a little bit about Joyland as well, which premiered at Cannes and won the if I pronounce it right, the Uncertain Regard award.
Mhm.
I'm still working on my French, guys. But it's an award winner, and so he Oliver's having a really a big moment right now with one of his films premiering at Cannes, and winning an award, and then the other debuting at Tribeca, and we'll see how that plays out with that. So we talk about all of that, and it's just a really fun conversation. I enjoy talking with them, and I also want to thank Publicists for getting me a screener of Cave of Adullam, which I will have a review on when that movie premieres at the festival. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right, Taylor, Tribeca, you have a lot of content I'm sure that you're going to be putting out. Where can people find this content?
Big surprise to everybody that already has seen any of these videos. Drinkinthemovies.com, everything's there. If you want to know about something, click the about page. If you want to look at reviews, click the correlating word. If you want to listen to the podcast, click the correlating word. You get the idea.
You get the idea, of course. Very self-explanatory. It is very easy to find whatever you need at drinkinthemovies.com. Of course, I will be covering Tribeca for real. You can find my content at thisisforreal.com. For real, of course, spelled FORREEL. Similar to Drinking the Movies, you can find all the links to our social media on the website. And you can connect with me personally on Twitter and Instagram at beingtsj. And yeah,
but not Letterboxd because he's never on it.
You know, I feel like you're going to give me some grief about that, and maybe it's deserved. I really should get better at logging things on Letterboxd, but I'm just not that great at it. So,
too cool for school.
Too cool for school. I'll get better. I somewhat promise I will get better.
That's worth nothing, everybody.
I know it's a very empty promise, but you will have content from me for Tribeca, and I am pretty good at logging things from festivals. So you can, if you do want to follow me on Letterboxd, I'll post periodically. It's also Being TSJ. In fact, you can go to pretty much any social media, Being TSJ. I'll be there, right? So anyway, Taylor, thank you for joining me tonight and for doing this somewhat late recording. But I'm excited to have people watch it and hear more recommendations, and also reconvene at the end of the festival to see what we ended up watching and liking. Right?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Can't wait to get to it.
Awesome. And for everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, this is For Real.